Welcome to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. And now here's your host, Wade T. Lightheart.
Want awesome health? How about doubling your energy? With our free Awesome Health course, you can get a new video and lesson every single day for 84 straight days. The course covers everything from optimizing your digestion, nutrient intake, correct health issues, including weight, skin, energy, immune system, and so much more. The course could easily be worth $200 or $300 for, and yet it's 100% free when you go to bioptimizer.com. That's bioptimizers.com. Once you're there, just enter your name and email to get the first 3 phases of the Bioptimization report. You'll get the report immediately and begin getting your video lessons each and every day from there on in.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today we are going to discuss a really big challenge that's going on. Many of you have heard about the baby formula shortage. You know, there's a big issue around kids' nutrition. And there's also another secondary issue is what really constitutes healthy food for children, specifically for baby-led weaning. You know, what are, foods that are good for your child versus things that aren't for your child? What's some of the misidentification, misbranding, or confusion where people who are trying to do what's good for their kids, it's not working out for them. And today I have a couple of experts, Serenity and Joe Carr. Then they started Serenity Kids because they wanted their baby girl, Della, to grow up healthy and strong. Now, when they began looking for baby foods, they were outraged by how much sugar and how little nutrition was available. So guess what they did? They went and made their own. Now, created to mimic the nutrients of breast milk, Serenity Kids baby food is made from pasture-raised meats sourced from an all-American family farms and high-quality organic vegetables and oils. Now, Serenity Kids purees and balances blended savory meals that contain the most nutrition per bite for your little one. We'll put all the links to their site and everything going forward. But Serenity and Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Hey, great to be here.
So I think this is a big moment for everybody when they decide, or the universe decides for them, they're going to have a child. And most parents are like, oh, okay, what do I do now? There's no manual. And, other people say, oh, don't worry about it. You'll figure it out. And you're like, pulling your hair out. So how did, I want to go to the backstory before you get into your products and stuff. Is what was that like for you guys? And what are you hearing maybe from the people that you serve?
I think it was pretty different for both of us. I've always wanted children. I drew pictures of my future children when I was 5. Brittany were their names. So a lot of my adult dating was focused on starting a family. I kind of wanted babies more than I wanted a wife, but you got to have one for the other. So Serenity was convinced she wasn't going to have children before meeting me.
Yep.
But I convinced her. So for me, there's always been a lot more of that, oh, it'll be fine. We're designed to do this. We've been doing this for thousands of years, but it's also not my body, right? So It's very easy for me to say.
Right.
Reaction like.
I'm a planner. I'm organized. I schedule stuff. I live by my calendar because it lets me have a balanced life. I put my workouts and my stress relief stuff. I put it all on my calendar. So as soon as we found out we were having a baby, we did look at each other and go, now what do we do? But we had already started the company by then. So for both of us, food has been an integral part of our own health journeys. I was an unhealthy little kid. I ate a lot of processed foods and garbage growing up, which caused stomach issues later. And I've been eating kind of a paleo-style diet for about 12 years now. And we had started talking about having a family someday. And I was thinking, oh, what do I feed this kid? Because food was so important to me. It's the foundation of my health, period. It's a huge part of my life, a huge part of my budget, a huge part of my thought process. And so immediately I went to what would we feed this little new person in our lives? And we were at a paleo conference at the time when I had this question pop up. I'm like, Joe, let's go find all the baby stuff. We're here at the world at the center of biohacking and health. And there wasn't anything there. And I remember thinking, oh, well, maybe babies aren't supposed to eat veggies and meats. Maybe they're supposed to eat apple juice and rice cereal. I don't know. I had never done the research. I've done the research on adults, right? Because I that was part of my journey, but not really babies. And so I launched into, it was my summer of nerddom. It was 2016. And I spent every waking moment that I was not working with my nose in a book, with listening to podcasts, reading blogs. Conveniently, a lot of my health mentors had recently had kids, a couple years old. You know, they were 2 and 3 and 4. And so they had all written blogs like, what am I feeding my kid? And I would say 100% of them were occasionally sacrificing nutrition for convenience. And for me, that was like, oh, a big aha moment. There is white space in the baby food industry. We know I have these mentors who, I mean, their whole lives, their livelihoods, everything about their lives is health related, and they are occasionally sacrificing for convenience. So we knew that there were enough health-minded people out there that really wanted something different. And in that summer of nerddom, my research, I found out it was not apple juice and rice that babies needed. Actually, it was the proteins and mostly the fats that they needed. And so we hired like a VA from Indonesia to pull a bunch of research stats. And Joe always knows the numbers better.
Well, yeah, we just had them put in the nutrition facts for all 246 baby food pouches on the
Organic.
all the organic baby food pouches in existence in America. And then we were able to do some averages and stats, and it was scary. It was like an average of 9 grams of sugar per pouch.
Which doesn't sound like a ton, right? 9 grams to me and you, no big deal. But if you think about a 15-pound baby versus a 150-pound adult, you add a 0 to that, and that's 90 grams of sugar. And then I'm like, whoa. And then I got like mad.
Yeah, they're eating 2 or 3 of these a day because they're all fruit. It was all fruit purees, a little bit of veggies. So it's like fruit or fruit and veggies, but very high in sugar. And kids they're just, getting 30, 40 grams of sugar a day from these pouches, which is a crazy amount of sugar for a kid, for a little baby. But probably even more concerning than the sugar, it was the lack of fat.
Yeah.
Babies need 30 grams of fat a day, according to the USDA. Maybe they need more, but a lot of fat. That's like 300 grams for you or me, right? And so a huge percentage of their diet is supposed to be fat. Brain is made of fat. The spine development, is reliant on fat. And there was, less than 1% had any significant amount of fat on the aisle. Like there was just no fat because you use fruit and vegetables. There's no fat in there. So, and then there's no meat, and about 4% of all the baby foods had meat at all. Most of them were carried in stores. None of it was well sourced, and they all tasted pretty bad. They mixed the meat with grain. So it was like pretty gross. So they didn't sell well, and companies didn't make very many of them. And meat is an ideal first food for babies because it's so similar to breast milk. Breast milk is an animal product that's very high in fat, and meat fat, those saturated fats from meats. The sourcing matters, of course. We know that grass-fed pasture-raised meats have superior fat, superior nutrition overall. So we decided to go make a different kind of baby food that is the kind of food we'd want to feed our baby, that we would make ourselves if we had time, but then we could make it in a convenient format for parents who are busy and don't have time to make it. So we decided to mimic the pouch format on the aisle that is convenient and easy for parents. But instead of fruit with some vegetables, we made it with meat, fat, and vegetables within a much more balanced macronutrient profile.
So it's a quick question. How long did you guys do breastfeeding beforehand? And is this an alternative to breastfeeding? Or if someone's kind of like determining where they are in that spectrum, some women can't make enough milk, that could be a big issue. Then there's like, when do you wean the child and how do you get on that? And how does all that kind of work into this equation? Because I'm curious about those questions.
Yeah, so the timeline is for moms who can breastfeed, which I did. It is breast milk for the first 6 months, solely breast milk. And then once the kids start showing signs that they're ready to eat, like they can sit up straight, so you have to be able to swallow properly, right? So they have to be able to hold their body upright, not just sitting in the chair, but actually sitting upright. When they are super duper interested in what you've got going on over there at the table, and they're like watching every move when you're eating, and they're like mimicking the mouth, they'll actually like copy you. And when they just really start getting interested in food and have some of those cues, then it might be time to start introducing purees or baby-led weaning. Just hand them a big stalk of broccoli and let them just play with it, like taste it, lick it, touch it, see it, smell it, all those sensory kind of inputs, and that are super useful from a just motor skills perspective. How to hold something, how to bring it to your mouth instead of your ear. Really, like, there's a lot of learning that goes on in those first few months of eating. Not necessarily a ton of food always gets into the kid. It kind of depends on the kid. Like our kid, go figure, she wasn't interested in eating any of our foods till she was like 8 or 9, maybe 10 months old. I'm like, really? We started a baby food company for you. And she's like, meh, I'll take the milk. And I was giving her bone broth time, also bone broth mixed with liver, which worked out really well
After 6 months.
Yeah, after 6 months. So in general, it kind of depends on the kid. Talk to your healthcare professional, obviously, but 6 months for purees. And then if for some reason breastfeeding is an option for the family, which I had low supply, so we did end up doing some different things starting at about the 5-month mark. We actually got donated milk. That's a thing. I didn't even know there was a milk donation kind of subculture.
There's a whole circuit out there with the milk and stuff. A friend of mine had challenges around that, and I had no idea how intricate and widespread
Yes.
sharing program is for mothers. It's really beautiful. It's a really beautiful unknown network, I think.
Yes, that's why I mention it, because don't throw out your milk stashes, ladies. Someone would want that. I had my cousin like throw out a whole freezer of milk, and I'm just about in tears. I'm like, don't do it. So we ended up supplementing with some donor milk. I ended up finding a local raw goat farm here in town that tests every batch of milk they make. So I fed her some of that. I fed her, like I said, homemade bone broth mixed with pureed liver in a bottle, one of those a day.
That recipe's on our blog, the liver bone broth. Our daughter loved that.
Yep.
Really nutritious.
And then we ended up switching to a formula because I knew that she needed more liquid foods than I could produce myself. And she weaned unexpectedly at 9 months old. And so it was a big, like, traumatic thing for me as a mom. And we ended up going with, there were no formulas, zero that I could find worldwide that I actually liked. There were a few that were less bad. And so those are the ones that we ended up choosing. We chose a Hala goat milk formula from Germany. They still use industrial seed oils. They still use synthetic folic acid and a couple synthetic B vitamins that weren't methylated that I didn't really like that they were using, but they use milk sources I didn't love. But you know what? I wanted to give her some kind of milk product. And so I went with one of those. And then I found a toddler formula that was US made. That was Sammy's milk. They used methylated B vitamins. They used a goat milk. They still used some oils I didn't really love. And the fat sources were pretty
simplistic.
They were pretty simple. There wasn't a wide variety of different kinds of fats. And so we ended up choosing that. So for parents who are struggling with that, there are other options out there. And actually, that was, I guess it was 2 years ago now that we actually launched our toddler formula to help with that. So when I was dealing with this issue, I was like, wait a second, there's a huge problem, a huge gap in the market. And I happen to own a baby food company, and maybe I could help solve this problem. So I spent 2 years of my life, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but we have made the best formula in the whole wide world.
Yep, most like breast milk of any formula.
The fat sources are really varied. We use A2 milk, which human milk and goat's milk are A2, and there's most cow milk at least has a little bit of A1. We use
Not ours.
vitamin B vitamins. We use a wide variety of different kinds of fats to give a more realistic fat profile.
No corn syrup, no rice
No
syrup,
industrial
it's
seed
only
oil.
lactose carbs, more similar to breast milk.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
So we made a big difference in babies' lives.
So what are some of the more inflammatory elements, shall we say, we'll use that word, or elements that should not be in baby food that you were finding in your research that new parents really need to avoid? And then concordantly, what are the things, you talked a little bit about what are the go-to? So maybe the top few things that are in baby food that you're like, what? This shouldn't be in baby food. What did you notice?
For us, I would say it kind of varies a little bit based on the subcategory. So you've got formula, which has industrial seed oils, a lot of corn products, and just a lot of empty starches. So sugars that are not really valuable. And then on the puree side, most of the purees out there aren't terrible, but they're just 100% fruit. So you've got to think about
Or carbs.
and 100% carbs. So you've got to kind of think about a macronutrient profile that brings those fats into the diet, brings those fibers, and brings in different kinds of proteins, because most of them don't have a lot of protein either. And I would say, you want to.
Well, whole fruit has some nutritional value,
Yeah.
and it's a common first food for babies because it's often soft and they can pick it up and they can eat it, which, like she's saying, there's an important role soft foods have for kids. They can pick it up and start practice eating, so they shouldn't eat just purees. But the pureed processed fruits in the pouches are more like jam, like they've been boiled down, they've usually been skinned, so that there's easy to puree,
Less
and so
fiber.
there's less fiber, there's just sugars left, like they boil out all the vitamins. Same with the vegetables, they're skinned, they're boiled down, so there's really not much left in them. So they're not, in addition to being 100% carbs, they are just a blood sugar bomb. Like it's like drinking, it's almost like drinking juice, which juice is a big no-no for babies. Like for straight sugar from juice form is very, very problematic. So these purees are pretty similar to juice in that regard. There's also a lot of grain on the baby food aisle. They love, particularly rice is a very popular item on the aisle, and rice, in addition to having little to no nutritional value, like it's just empty carbs, can be very high in arsenic and other heavy metals, which is a lot of the heavy metal scandal is related to the rice products because they're so heavily, they just retain arsenic in a very scary way, and they also are bad for the blood sugar. Like they just become sugar since they're simple carbs. It just goes straight to blood sugar, and blood sugar spikes and dips for babies are, in addition to being inflammatory, cause a lot of behavior problems parents don't like. They're crying, they're fussy, they don't sleep as well, their immune system gets compromised, they get sick, which is awful having a sick baby. They have issues with their stool. A lot of the issues people complain about with babies can be mitigated by having a more balanced diet and eliminating those inflammatory and high sugar or high carb foods and balancing them out with fat and protein.
What about colorings, preservatives, heavy metals, fillers? What are some of the things that you'll see in baby food that shouldn't be in there?
The Bioptimizer mission is to help more of the world fix their digestion at a core level. The truth is, your digestion is only as good as your enzyme levels. Imagine trying to build a house with a tree. It's impossible. You need to chop the tree down into small pieces. Similarly, in order for your food to be used by your body, it must be broken down into a bioavailable form. And that's what enzymes do, converting protein into amino acids, fats into specific fatty acids, and carbohydrates into usable energy units. We start out with an abundance of enzymes, and that's why kids can digest just about anything really quickly. The thing is cooking food kills enzymes as they cannot survive at temperatures above 118 degrees. So years of this ends up depleting our bodies and leads to weak digestion. Taking digestive enzymes like masszymes, which has an incredibly high level of protease for digesting protein, as well as other critical enzymes like lipase, amylase, and others, is a total game changer. Suddenly, you strengthen your digestion, eliminate gas and bloating, boost metabolism, and multiply your energy. most importantly, you fix your digestion at a core level. To get started with Masszymes and to save 10% on your first order, go to masszymes.com. That's MASSZYMES.com and use the code MASS10, MASS10.
I would say right now, there was a bunch of legislation passed in the 70s, or I don't know if it was actual legislation, but baby food manufacturers cleaned up their act. They used to put MSG and all kinds of added sugars and things like that into baby food. So we don't have too much preservatives. We don't have a lot of dyes or anything like that. I would say, I mean, maybe like Pediasure, you're going to find things like that.
Yeah.
Those aren't everyday food items necessarily. And I would say heavy metals occur naturally in the soil. So when you've got a carrot, you've got an opportunity for heavy metals. So really you want to go with a company that monitors that, and most of the big companies don't actually monitor that. So
Our soil's heavily contaminated from industrial waste over the last 50, 60, 70 years. So in addition to occurring naturally, there's a lot of that are in the soil. So they don't add, the heavy metals don't add it in. They just are using cheap, low quality vegetables produced on land that's been polluted, and root vegetables, in particular are very vulnerable, and roots are a popular baby food because they are very starchy and they're a good source of carbs, and they make the puree nice and thick. So we use a lot of roots in ours. We use a lot of sweet potato, carrot, and beet and so forth, a lot of good nutrition from them. But you got to test them for heavy metals. The only way to know whether there's heavy metals in them or not is to test and to set standards with your suppliers and say, hey, we're not going to accept this lot if it's higher than our standard. And so we implemented that program really early, and thus our foods are the best in class. Like we have the lowest levels, the safest, cleanest food of any in the industry. But the big companies have not done that, and don't even appear to be doing it now, despite having all this publicity around their products being, way above the toxic levels, especially the rice products, in some cases 10 times the safe limit for babies. And yet, because the FDA hasn't actually made a rule that says you can't, they just keep doing it because it's cheap and they're making money. Maybe behind the scenes, they're taking some action to clean it up, but they certainly haven't publicly announced anything. So little companies like us are able to do it, just by committing to it. They could do it too if they wanted to.
So, and what about preservation of the food, shelf life, storing the food? What are some things that are safe versus maybe questionable? Because I see some are in glass jars, some are in those kind of squeezy plastic kind of things. I don't know if they're what's the standards and what's some of the maybe substandard programs that people use.
Yeah, the shelf stable. There's a lot of rules around shelf stability. So there's a lot of regulation. The formula crisis was a failure on the regulators' part to ensure, it wasn't that they didn't regulate, it wasn't that there weren't rules to prevent that. There were, the Abbott broke them. FDA didn't catch it until there was a whistleblower. They waited too long after the whistleblower to actually change it. So, but that's very rare. So in most cases, the shelf stability, the microbial growth is not a risk. How much nutrition is lost in the process of making it shelf stable is a big problem. So like I said, the fruit purees are boiled, they're pasteurized. So they kill all the bacteria by boiling the crap out of it. And that also removes the nutrients, but at least they're shelf stable and will be for a long time. The taste degrades over time, but as long as they're not, frozen or put at 100+ degrees, they should be fine. Our products are made shelf stable through a pressurization process. It's like home canning. Put it in a pressure cooker, and that kills all the bacteria inside. So they're shelf stable also indefinitely. Like they're for shelf stable forever. They can handle high heat. If you freeze them, some of the fat separates and the product quality is degraded from just this experience of it. Our products have an 18-month shelf life. If any much longer after that, the taste starts to degrade, but they're not unsafe. They just start to degrade. So the only thing to worry about is when you open it. If once it's open, then the shelf life, it gets shorter and shorter. So if the baby puts their mouth on the pouch, that introduces new bacteria to the pouch. So if they put their mouth on it and then you reclose it, you probably want to eat it or freeze it within about a day. If they don't put their mouth on it and you squeeze it into a bowl or you're spoon feeding, it can last 2 or 3 days, about the same amount as meat and veggies. If you open a can of soup, and how long you would keep it before throwing it out. You would usually be a little extra careful since they're a baby and they're vulnerable, but parents can use their best judgment of when to use open pouches. They're 3.5 ounces, so it's pretty easy to use it up in a day or two.
Glass versus pouch.
So the glass versus pouch, the shelf stability is equal. There's not much difference in the shelf stability. There's obviously a lot of convenience sides of the pouch that the baby can feed themselves and hold it. It's not glass, so if they throw it, it doesn't break.
Because we use pouches.
Yeah.
It's a big decision for us because glass is, I don't know, it is a little bit healthier, right? It's a little bit
There's the
less
perception
porous.
that it's healthier, that it's less, the fear that plastic can leach into food.
So that's why we measure ours. So we
test for it.
we test for plasticizers and leakage into the purees. And we're really, really proud to be part of clean label projects that we've won the Purity Award for almost all of our products, I think now. And part of that is testing for heavy metals, plasticizers, pesticides, and other environmental contaminants.
About 200 different contaminants they test for.
They test for a lot.
Yeah.
And so we've been partnering with them for 2 or 3 years, 3 years now, actually. And are really, really proud to be part of that group. There's a group of baby food manufacturers, small manufacturers, that are all working towards making things better. And it feels really good to be part of a group that is working on the same thing.
Well, let's talk about your company, Serenity Kids. Now, you have a kind of a full spectrum amount of products available from different ages. Maybe you can walk us through kind of your keystone product, the things that people most gravitate for at what ages and why.
Sure.
So
Right here.
a keystone.
Oh, okay. Joe's
Yeah.
gonna start. You don't want to start with age?
We use a keystone. So
Okay.
let's start with the popularity, like what most parents are going to use. Like a lot of parents aren't going to use formula at birth. So our most popular and most kind of really, like you said, keystone are these meat and veggie purees. These are designed to be first foods. They're very simple, 4 to 5 ingredients maximum. So for instance, this one's grass-fed beef with organic kale and sweet potato, right? So that's it. There's 3 ingredients, 4 counting the water. Or our free range chicken with organic pea and carrots, also has avocado oil for some added fat boost. So 4 ingredients.
And these were our first 2 products we ever made.
These are the first 2. They're still the most popular. They're very simple, very easy for a baby to eat and digest, and taste great.
What age category would kids be?
So this is 6+ months. So this is right after they move from breast milk to any kind of solid food. These are, you could.
Okay. And how long would they stay on that for? Like, how long could they be using that for?
It depends how many teeth they have, my dear.
Yes.
So our daughter got teeth at 5 months old, which is pretty early, but I didn't get teeth personally until I was 12 months old.
Yeah.
So it matters
So until they have enough teeth, purees are an essential part of their nutrition as a supplement to breast milk, because they can still keep breastfeeding, or formula or other milks post 6 months, if that's what moms do. But they need them up until then. But because there's so few convenient packaged foods for kids and babies, a lot of children continue using the pouches well past when they would have to. They can chew now, but they like the pouches. They taste good. They're good nutrition, so they continue to be a snack or a supplement to a meal well into toddlerhood. Our daughter's 4, and she would eat as many of these a day as we'd let her. We've limited her to 3 a day right now.
but it's a good snack,
but
right?
it's-
You've got a nice macronutrient balanced snack, good protein, good fat, good carbs. It's not messy. They can feed themselves.
It's a perfect blood sugar balancer. If she's getting irritable because we're in between meals and we're on the go and we're not going to get a meal for another hour, this is a really nice balance of fat, carbs, and protein that is a great snack for her. And so these products, they're simple, but they really last.
How many calories does a baby eat at 6 months old anyways?
It depends very widely on the baby itself. And one of the issues is that we don't know how much they get through nursing.
Right.
So it's really hard to tell. I would say when our daughter was 6 months old, or when she started eating pouches, she wouldn't even eat a whole pouch in one sitting. She would eat like half a pouch, and we would put it away and give her the rest at the next meal or the next day. But then once she got a little bit older, she could down, I mean, I remember she would down a pouch in like 48 seconds or something, just like, and then it's gone. So it really depends a lot on the kid and their stage of life, and how big they are.
You just kind of trust them to eat
Yep.
until they're full, and then, or give signs when they're hungry, you can offer food. So really calorie counting isn't something that parents really need to do. Like kids are very intuitive about how much food they need, especially at that age. So breastfeeding as much as possible, and then supplementing with food. Really,
Especially if you're giving nutrient dense options. Now, if you were going to give a kid a bunch of Oreos, they might keep eating because that's hyper palatable, addictive food. If you give a 12-month-old a bunch of French fries, they might eat a whole pile, and they might actually overeat. So it's really important to be judicious and careful around what is offered, but they're pretty good at making their own choices.
Got it. And then, so what other food products do you offer to the kiddies?
So we have a variety of other pouches. In addition to the meat line, we have 5 different of those meats that are meat and veggies. We also have salmon, bison, and turkey.
A really popular one on the West
Yeah.
Coast is our 100% wild caught salmon with organic butternut squash and beet. The omega-3s in this are awesome. It's a really good way to get those vitamins into your baby.
We also have veggies that don't have meat in them, but are fat and carb balanced. So these are veggies plus fat. They really have a strong vegetable taste and flavor, so they introduce that flavor of vegetables. They're a great supplement to a meal if they're already eating meat. It's kind of like a side dish, or just like a lower calorie snack in between meals. So we have a variety of those. Some of those also have herbs in them to boost the flavor. And then as we get with older kids, get with a new one. Oh yeah. So we have 2 different ways to introduce complex flavors for older children, because as their palate develops, they like more and more complex flavors. All these products are fine 6+ months. You can introduce them as early as you want. It's a matter of preference for the parent or for the child. But we have these, this meat and herb line that's chicken and thyme. We just came out with these chicken and thyme, beef and ginger. They're the meat and veggie, like the core line, but also have herbs to them to heighten the flavor. And then we have these bone broth purees that are meat, veggies, and herbs and bone broth. So they're extra nutrition and a lot more complex flavors. This is like turkey bolognese. We have beef pot roast and turmeric chicken. Very, very flavorful, much stronger flavor for adults. I actually really like the turmeric chicken. It's the one I eat when I need a quick snack, or if I had tooth surgery and couldn't choose, I was eating pouches. So the bone broth line is really great for that. And then we came out with our puff snack last year. You grab one of these. And this is a grain-free version of a chewable. So babies love picking up stuff and eating it, of course. And as you talked about baby-led weaning, it's great to let them do that with food. While on the go, it's very hard to have just a jar of peas to give them to pick up and eat. So these puffs are really nice, shelf-stable occupier. They can practice their pincer grasp, and you can give them, they can eat them. And they have some nutrition. They've got, they're made from cassava flour, they've got olive oil, they've got bone broth in them, they've got vegetable powder in them. So very, very nutrient dense version of the traditional puff snack, which is usually made from rice. All the others are rice-based. Some of them add synthetic vitamins,
synthetic flavors,
and usually some kind of sweetener. They fruit sweeten them. So these are not sweet, they're savory flavor, they taste like vegetables, plus they have that, fat and protein mixed in as well.
And the really cool thing about these is that we really wanted to start getting babies acclimated to the taste of vegetables. So there's something called the flavor window, which starts at 4 to 6 months old and goes till about 18 months. And during that window is when a person is going to start getting acclimated to the kinds of tastes they're going to like for the rest of their life. So if you can teach a baby to like the taste of bitter, to like the taste of broccoli, to like the taste of peppers during that window, if you give them access to a wide variety of herbs and spices, then their palate is going to develop in a much more diverse way and acclimate them to those flavors later in life. Now, they may go through a picky eating phase in their toddlerhood, right, where broccoli is super gross, but hopefully there's a time in their childhood still where they're like, oh, wait a second, where their body's like, wait a second, I know this taste, this is a good taste, this is wholesome, this is good for me.
But conversely, if you give them the sweet foods, if they, these fruit purees that were the only thing you could find previously, if they eat a lot of sugar, they're gonna prefer sugar. Which and they'll just will really not want any other foods. And that's one of the big problems we have in the industry for food industry, is that they start on these sweet foods and then they want more sweet. So the food industry creates all these sugary, foods, and then kids have sugar their whole life and they end up sick, like Serenity, or pre-diabetic, or having mental and emotional challenges, or all these problems our youth have today. A lot of them stem back to that inflammation that comes from an overly sugary diet.
And I would say for the puffs, the age range, I don't know, starts at 8 or 9 months, kind of depending on the kid.
Yeah, pincer grass when they can pick it up.
And then our last product.
And then we have then there's the A2 formula, which is classified as a toddler formula due to FDA's regulations. We're not allowed to recommend it for infants. We did formulate it to be as similar to breast milk and to be as close to infant formula as possible, and are in the long, cumbersome process with FDA to get it certified as infant. But until then, we can only recommend it as toddler, but parents can make their own decision about what they give their kids or talk to their health provider.
Wow. So that seems like you got a whole full spectrum of food. So what's next for Serenity Kids? What do you see happening, and where do you see this going, and what do you envision the future for?
Well, our products, our beef and chicken, 2 bestsellers, launched the morning our daughter was born, which was
crazy.
not planned at all and completely crazy.
Yep.
But it has given us it's lit the fire under us, right? So we have a kid now who's 4, and we want to keep making products that suit her. It's really hard for me to go buy one of our competitors' products that we don't have yet, right? That's kind of why we have
compromise. Ultimately, it's always a compromise, buying another product, really some kind of compromise, because nobody makes it like we do. So we're aging up, so we're always looking at how we can make older and older products. Our long-term vision is to be one of the leading children's food companies in the country, that we want to make a whole suite of foods, starting in baby, but aging well up into older age children. Maybe someday teenagers, maybe someday adults and older people. We own serenitysilver.com. So there's no, a lot of older people actually eat purees for if they have chew or jaw or digestion issues. So always keeping open mind to that. But we've got a variety of products in the works to help feed older and older children.
Well, sounds great. Where can people reach you, connect with you, find out more, order your products, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we have an awesome website, myserenitykids.com. That's where you can get the best deals. We have a really strong subscription program on there, so you can set it and forget it. We are also on Amazon. All our products are on Amazon. And then we're in most retail stores nationwide. We're over 10,000 stores nationwide. So all natural food stores, Whole Foods, Sprouts, places like that. And then also a lot of conventional. We're in a lot of Targets. We're in all Kroger's now. We're in a lot of Walmarts. So we're increasing that distribution all the time. So if you can't find it at your store, definitely request us. Let them know they should have it. And there is a store locator on our website to find a store we're at. And also Thrive Market and other online retailers.
Well, guys, this has been very informative, and I know there's a lot of new moms and dads that are going to be excited to discover your products and maybe start testing some of them on their kids. I think it sounds like it's a really great win for them. Any closing words before we sign off?
One thing we literally love your products too, and we take them, we give them to our daughter. You can add a probiotic capsule to one of our pouches. You can open it up, open the pouch, add it in, close it, massage it, and add a little boost of probiotic to a kid's pouch. So it's one of the many ways our products can go well together. And I just wanted to mention that. And we also, give your products to we have a new mama kit that for any mom who has a baby in our network, we send them a suite of fun products, and you guys have been generous enough to donate some of your enzymes and things that are really helpful for a new mom, and they're in that postpartum recovery. So your products have a big role to play also. So we're grateful to have the partnership.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And I want to thank you for joining us today. And I wish you the best of success. And for all our listeners who are out there struggling to find the right formula for your child, look no further than going to serenitykids.com. All of the show notes will be here on the podcast. Reach out, give them a shot. I think you're going to love it. I think your children are going to love it. And we need to pave the way to healthy kids for the next generation. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. Take care and feed those kids well. They are our future. Thanks a lot.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: how to get away with eating sugar. Hey, look, sugar is normally one of the worst things for you. But let's be honest. I mean, we all cheat from time to time. And here's a little trick that will ensure your body benefits from the sugar. Now, before you eat or drink anything sweet, take 5 to 8 capsules of P3OM. The patented strain in the formula devours sugar so fast, it literally doubles in the body every 20 minutes in the presence of sugar. That doesn't mean that you can or you should eat a bunch of sugar or sit around all day doing that. But on the days that you do cheat, or you go after one of those maybe meals that you wouldn't normally do, this ensures that you get something in your gut that eats the sugar. And it's not going to feed the bad guys or spike your blood glucose nearly as much. So to learn more about P3OM and its sugar-devouring and protein-digesting properties and how it can transform your gut and metabolism, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.